you have to enrich the uranium to be able to have a bomb. And then you have to have a certain amount of this uranium. This certain amount is called critical mass. So you need a critical mass of uranium to start a chain reaction, what gives you the bomb. So I always say that I want a critical mass of people to start the chain reaction for peace.
Some experts chase attention, but the smart ones build authority. You're listening to the Authority on Demand podcast, where credibility becomes your competitive advantage. Every week, we're pulling back the curtain on how founders and leaders turn expertise into inbound demand through books that position, media that converse, and strategies that actually move the needle. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authority on Demand. Now, let's turn your authority into leverage. Okay, everybody. So there's a moment in every rebel's story where they have to choose, stay safe or step into the fire. For most people, that moment comes once. For Dr. Zafra Lerman, it's been a way for life. On today's podcast, we're going to explore the intersection of expertise and activism, of knowledge and courage. And today we're talking with those who turn the lab into a battleground for human rights, who transform chemistry equations into peace treaties, and who prove that sometimes the most radical act is simply bringing people together. Her book, Human Rights and Peace, A Personal Odyssey, is about her journey and about what becomes possible when you refuse to accept the world the way it is. So without further ado, Dr. Lerman, thank you so much for joining us on our podcast. It's a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Hey, real quick before we jump back in, if you're loving what we're doing here, hit that subscribe button and drop us a like. We're bringing you the best authors, the most real conversations, and all the writing wisdom that you didn't know you needed. So stick around because it only gets better from here. All right, now let's get back to the conversation. Of course, you have a very exciting story to tell. I think our listeners are going to learn a lot from you. So I would love to just dive right in. I'd love to talk a little bit about yourself to start. You talk a lot about your personal experiences in this memoir, but perhaps you can lead us a little bit into what moment you decide that it's time to write it down and turn it into a book. Was there a catalyst that just made you choose to put it into words?
During the years, I was asked to write a book in every stage of my life. When I developed a way to teach science through art, music, dance, drama, rap, poetry, animation, and it became very successful with disadvantaged students around the world, I was under tremendous pressure to write a book about that so it would be easier for other people to adapt it. And so it was adapted around the world, but by many institutions. But being so busy, I did not have the time to even think about the book. And when I worked at the same time, it's not different time, but parallel, when I worked on human rights and I went into the Soviet Union and I risked my life after midnight, a woman going alone in dark alleys in Moscow, in St. Petersburg, it was Leningrad then, in order to meet with dissidents, what was illegal in the Soviet Union and could land me in jail, and then collecting dissidents along the way, and then we would meet in a dark attic, and at 2 a.m. I would give a seminar that was illegal. I would distribute scientific material, what was illegal, and I would collect the CVs and resumes in order to bring them back and work on behalf of all these dissidents. These were people that were called refuseniks because they were refused permission to leave the country, but because they asked to leave the country, they were fired from their job, and then they were blamed that they are parasites because they don't work. So many of them were sent to hard labor in Siberia, many were in jail for many years, And I worked very hard on their freedom, and many of them owe their freedom to me risking my life for them. So then I was asked to write a book about that, because the stories about that were almost like 007. It's like a spy story. And then after September 11, I concentrated on the Middle East. Now, I chaired for the American Chemical Society the Subcommittee on Scientific Freedom and Human Rights for 26 years. So during these 26 years, I did a lot on human rights, Soviet Union, China after Tiananmen Square, Cuba, Peru, Guatemala. I was in all these places. And then came September 11. And I brought an idea that my subcommittee should now concentrate on the Middle East. And my idea was that we should organize a conference and bring together under the same roof scientists from all the Middle East countries, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Iran, the Palestinians, the Israelis, the Jordanian, the Egyptian, everybody under the same roof for 5 days with several Nobel laureates, and give them a platform to see what unites them rather than what separates them. Give them a forum where they can stop demonizing the unknown other, and give them a forum to start collaborations on issues that one country cannot solve alone. The countries are very close in the Middle East. Air pollution, the water doesn't know the lines on the map, or the aqueducts go through several countries. They don't know to stop in the border. The water is a very big issue in the Middle East. So in order to solve all these problems, you need collaboration.
Right.
But these people never had before any opportunity to spend time together and have Nobel laureates with them and solve this problem. And in addition, they developed friendships that overcame the chasms of distrust and intolerance. So when I brought it to the board of the ACS, it was in the middle, immediately after September 11, but in the Middle East, it was in the middle of the Intifada. The Intifada was the uprising of the Palestinians, and there were suicide bombs in Israel, in every restaurant, in every bus. It was all over, and in the beginning, everybody thought that I'm out of my mind in this situation to try to bring all the Middle East scientists from all the Middle East countries together. But I managed to persuade, and the board of ACS approved it. And then we started working on that. The name Malta Conferences Foundation comes from the fact that the first Malta conference was held on the island of Malta. In my mind, an island is safer than mainland, a little bit harder to get. And in addition, it was very hard to get to Malta because there were very few direct flights. So everybody had to spend almost a day to get there. So I calculated that for terrorists, it will not be worthwhile to spend so much time to go and kill a lot of Muslims and few Jews. So this is why Malta was selected. You did not say, and I did not say, that I am a scientist. I have a PhD in chemistry from the Weizmann Institute of Science in Israel, that is listed as one of the 10 best research institutes in the world. So I'm by myself a scientist, and therefore I work mainly with scientists.
Wow. So you really went through a lot in your life. I mean, First off, I have to say that your story really does make me realize how much we take for granted today and how grateful we are that, there's differences have been made in the past like that. It must have taken a lot of strength though too of what you've gone through. How did you find the courage to take such risks back then?
This is a good question. A lot of people ask me this question. Eh, I don't know. I grew up with values
Yeah.
that I knew that I have to help others as much as I can. Uh, when I was 6 years old, my father, I was already in school because I graduated from kindergarten in one day. I went and saw the teacher pinching a child, and I graduated immediately. I told my parents I'm not going back. So I went to school a year earlier. And when I woke up on my birthday, I found in my shoe a letter from my father that read, I hope you will go. Today is your birthday. I wish you, this is what every father would write. But then it continued, I wish you would grow up to be loyal to your country, to your nation, and to your family, but pay attention to the order he wrote. And then he said, I'm giving you this amount of money as a present for your birthday, but you will have to divide it by 3. One portion you will give to help the orphan children that lost their parents in the Holocaust. They are all alone, and you will donate to help them. The other part you will give to the National Fund to plant trees because it was arid land. And the last part, you can do what you want. So from the age of 6, you can see the values that were installed in me by my parents. So I always grew up knowing that my life on planet Earth is to help others. So when you grow up like that and you encounter problems, then you try to solve them. I did not answer really your question about the book. Then there was pressure to write a book about Malta. And by that stage, I said, okay, I'll write a book about everything that people wanted me to write books. So instead of having several books, I'll put all in a book with only 200 pages, because these days it's hard for people to read more than 200 pages. So everything has to be in these 200 pages. It's a memoir. It starts with my growing up, but it described all the things that people wanted me to write a book on each subject. So all that is in this book. And the publisher titled it Human Rights and Peace, a Personal Odyssey, but it has a very big chapter on my way of teaching, too, about how successful prisoners came with learning in this method, homeless children. It did really miracle with a lot of underprivileged. So all that I put in one book instead of having 4 books.
Understood. And that was just really inspiring to hear, especially the story about the note from your father. It really just goes to show the strength that it took to put this all down. And I very much admire that. And I think all the listeners today who are also writers could learn a lot from that. Even if an experience is, traumatic, it's important to get it down on the page. You did mention actually that this memoir requires examining the most personal, risky, and meaningful parts of your journey, which you've talked about already. But how do you prepare yourself to revisit these memories for the sake of the book? I'm sure that must have been a lot to take on as you got down and began the writing process.
Uh, for me, sadly, it became even more complicated because my husband who was very helpful in writing the book. He was an economist, but an excellent writer and an excellent editor. Got cancer during this process and passed away. So the book took longer than I expected, but then the book became like a dedication to my husband, and it's dedicated to him. And there is one chapter that I added after he passed away that is a chapter about him that was not originally in the book, but I added it after he passed away. He always used to make fun that he's an accompanying member. Why? He was a very accomplished person. He was the head of the Middle East Bureau at USAID, had 600 people working for him around the world, $5 billion budget, but was very, very modest. And he was traveling with me to all my conferences that I was invited around the world. And usually he was making fun because being a woman, the chemist immediately automatically start talking to him about chemistry. And it didn't matter how much he said, I don't understand what you talk to me. I don't know anything about chemical reaction. She is the chemist. You have to talk to her. But they were talking to him. So he used to say, I am only an AP, a accompanying person. I don't know chemistry. So usually when when we used to tell the funny stories how the people ignored me and wanted him as a man to listen to the chemical reaction. It was really funny to see it. He used to explain, I am only an AP, but this chemist insists to explain to me all the research, but refused to talk to Zafra. So I added the title of the chapter is accompanying person or accompanying member, I don't remember. But I added the chapter about him.
That's really like powerful to hear. I'm very sorry for your loss too, but that you were able to dedicate to him and that you still used him as a source of strength was it's very beautiful to hear. So now that you have the book out, I understood that all proceeds go to support future Malta conferences. So how does it feel knowing this impact will continue your mission to influence and to help others? That must be really inspiring to know that you're making such an impact.
To put on a conference like that is extremely, extremely hard. And also we started after September 11, and the first conference took place in 2003. Since then, there were 10 conferences, and there is one coming up now. It's tremendous work. We don't have any paid employees. We are all volunteers. And the two biggest obstacles are one, raising money, because it's very important that we pay for all the participants. The one thing important in the Middle East is that everybody is treated equal. They are not poor and rich, smart and stupid. The Palestinians always say it's the only conference that we don't have to hear about our poor Palestinian brothers, that we had to pay for them because we pay for everybody. And everybody is equal. The Nobel laureates and the graduate students stay in the same hotel, one next to each other. They eat the meals together, sitting one next to the other. And this is really part of the success. There were a lot of people that tried to imitate it, but did not last long, and we are still going. And it's still the only platform in the world that brings all these people together. Therefore, I'm nominated by a member of the US Congress and a member of the French Parliament already 7 times for the Nobel Peace Prize, because we are the only one that brought these people and bring these people together. So the fundraising is extremely hard. I always like to say there are billions and billions of dollars to build weapons of mass destruction. Very small part of it would take us a long way to achieve peace, but we have to beg for money, just practically beg, like beggars. Somebody took once we took the conference to Turkey, to Istanbul, and we visited the Blue Mosque. And I got tired and it was cold, so I sat on the floor, covered myself with my pashmina because I was very cold. And I was talking with my hands like that to somebody that must have stood next to me. So somebody took this picture and said, this is the symbol for Malta because I am really a beggar asking for money, because this was for sure a picture of a beggar, sitting on the floor covered with a hand like that, begging. So this is one big problem that we have. And therefore, the proceeds of the book help as much as possible. So everybody from your listeners that will get the book will give a donation towards peace, because every penny that I should get goes directly for the conference to support the Middle East scientists to come to the conference. So everybody can feel that they did something for peace in the Middle East. The second big problem is to get a visa for all the group. Nobody wants all these people in their country. This one doesn't want the Iranian, this one doesn't want the Iraqi, this one doesn't want the Syrian. It's just hell. And there is a chapter in my book that is titled From Mission Impossible to Mission Possible, and it shows what imagination, spying, everything you have to do in order at the end to get a visa for all these people. And this chapter just show how hard it is. And sometimes conference starts always Sunday evening with a reception and dinner. Sometimes the reception starts and I'm still missing a country. Like in Morocco, the Iraqis still did not have, and it described how I managed to bring everybody to Morocco. But it was really, you could make a movie just for the visa to Morocco. It's a full movie because there are so many stories that what I tried to do in order to bring them. And then we were already starting, and the Iraqis called me that they get on the plane, but they don't have a visa and they don't have a letter what to show. And I was sitting with the Minister of Tourism having a cup of coffee, and I said to him, do you want the whole world to read that an Arab Muslim country sent back Arab Muslim scientists that want to do good for the world, and Morocco did not let them come in? And this is Sunday, a few hours before the reception starts. And I said, you better solve it because it will not be a good reputation. It was much more work than that I had to do during. And to make a long story short, you can read about it in the book, how it was solved. The reception started and the Iraqis were not there. And then in the middle of the reception, suddenly they came in with a big smile in their face, and they said they were treated like VIP. They were taken to the VIP lounge. The passport was stamped there with a visa, and they were telling us what a great welcome they had at the airport in Morocco. But the reception started, and they still were there.
That is a crazy story and something that we usually don't think about on the other side of it. But again, it's beautiful to know that every sale of your book goes to supporting that. So, very empowering stuff. So if people are listening today and they want to get in touch or donate or learn a little bit more, what's the best place they can go to learn more about your cause? Is
Okay,
there a
I'm going to give you the website for the Malta Conferences. It's plural. Malta Conferences Foundation is our name. So the website is Malta Conferences Foundation.org. And there is a page for donate in the website. If people want to know more about me, my personal website is my name, zafralerman.com. And my email is again my name, zafra@zafralerman.com.
Understood. Okay, well, that is really exciting to hear, everybody. We're going to put the links to in the description box of this
Yeah,
podcast.
and you have a picture. I don't know if you saw
Oh,
it.
yes. Thank you for showing that, everybody. The cover's right there. That is you then. It's a beautiful picture too, and it really just shows like the passion behind your face to this cause. So I love it. And guys, when you see that on the Amazon shelves, you can go ahead and click on it and learn even more about Zafra's amazing story. So thank you so much for sharing that.
So you mentioned the picture. The picture is even not a professional picture. It's a picture that one of my students took in my office. But the publishers thought that this picture will fit perfectly in the cover of this book. The book just came out in paperback. They charged a fortune before for the hardcover. So it's now in paperback, reasonably priced, and anybody that would like to read it and see what one person, even one woman, the changes one woman can make in the world, how many people are walking free because one woman risks her life, then you can get it in paperback on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all of them have it now in paperback. And all the proceeds are helping to achieve peace in the Middle East that looks very far. But if we would have had more money, we could have more of these conferences. We could have it more often. Then we would have more people involved. Now we have 700 people already in our network, and we have 17 Nobel laureates. We would have money to have more, then we could have many more results. In order to have an atom bomb, you hear all the time that Iran is enriching the uranium. Enriching the uranium, it means the uranium that you found in the ground is mainly uranium-238. It's an isotope. I'm not going to have you suffer with a class in science, but the uranium you need for the atom bomb is a different uranium, an isotope of this one. It's uranium-235. So you have to enrich the uranium in order to be able to have a bomb. Therefore, all the time on the news, you hear the Iranians are enriching, they have only 60%, they have this percentage. So in order to have the bomb, you have to enrich it to very high percentage, and then you have to have a certain amount of this uranium. If you have below, there will not be a bomb. It has to be from a certain amount and above. This certain amount is called critical mass. So you need a critical mass of uranium to start a chain reaction. what gives you the bomb. So I always say that I want a critical mass of people to start the chain reaction for peace. So if we would have more money, we could form this critical mass of people that will really bring peace to the world. And this is what I aim for. But, for peace is how to get money. For war, you can get it much easily.
Understood. Well, that is very inspiring, and it's clear that you're on a mission for change, just like, authors on mission today. So everybody, by purchasing the book, you'll not only hear an inspiring story, but be making positive change in the world. So we're going to put the links in the description box of this podcast today. You can click on over and, get in touch and purchase the book and learn more. It's always great to be involved in this. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us. It's been a true pleasure having you on and learning a little bit more about human rights and peace, Personal Odyssey. It's been a true pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Of course. And to all of our listeners, this story just reminds us that the most powerful authors aren't the ones with the most readers, but the ones willing to live their message in the real world. So if you're listening today, if you're a scientist, an educator, an entrepreneur, or a dreamer, the question is not whether you have something important to say, but whether you're willing to take the risk, have the strength, and say it and live it. So if you're listening today, thank you for joining us on Authors on Mission podcast, where we explore how experience becomes impact and how missions become movements. So until next time, keep writing, keep risking, and keep building those bridges that the world needs. We'll see you next time, everybody. That's a wrap on another episode of the Authority on Demand podcast. If today's conversation sparked something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with a founder or a leader who's ready to stop being the best kept secret in their industry. If you want to turn your expertise into inbound demand, head to authorityondemand.com to see how we help clients go from unknown to in demand. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, and I'll catch you on the next one. Now, go build some authority.